Hi, I'm Dr. Rene Hackney. Welcome to Week 1, Part 1 of 8 Weeks to Positive Discipline. In this segment, I'm going to be talking about how parents' emotions tend to impact the discipline exchange. And then we'll talk about I messages. That's your first big step. In the steps of positive discipline, I messages are a foundation step. There's something to think about on the way into that discipline exchange. If you haven't already printed an outline, now would be a good time to stop and go over to parentingbydrrene.com to do that. So, as you come into this discipline exchange, if you're the angriest person in the room, if you're frustrated, if you're upset, you're bringing that into the dynamics. You're bringing that language, you're bringing that tone. The first thing that tends to happen is you may escalate the conflict. They were already upset about something. Something wasn't going well. You're adding the anger and frustration, so it tends to kick everybody up a notch. It's going with the assumption that emotions tend to be contagious. If you can bring a sense of calm, all the better. There's also the idea that if children feel overwhelmed by your emotion, if they feel uncomfortable with your level of emotion, they may lose message for fear of messenger. Many, especially young children, kind of close down. They stop listening. It's hard for them to attend when the emotions are really big. You may also see, especially as children get to be about 3.5, 4 years old, through probably 6 or 7, a natural defense mechanism that may kick in. When children feel overwhelmed or unsure of the emotion in a situation, a natural defense mechanism is to play. So you're the parent feeling angry and you get angry and then they get silly, and it may register as disrespect, so you get angrier. It's an unfortunate situation. Let's say I'm trying to get my little 4-year-old into the car and she's running around and my arms are full. She knocks something out of my hand and I get angry. I raise my voice and say, "Get in the car," and my face is a little red, my voice is a little angry. If she even feels uncomfortable or unsure of that emotion in the situation, natural defense mechanism to play, and she goes, "Ah," and runs off and says, "You can't catch me." I get angrier as a parent because I was angry and you got silly. If you can recognize that in your child in the moment, if that's a familiar pattern, the idea is to at least recognize that she may be feeling overwhelmed. She may be feeling unsure. She's trying to diffuse the situation. She's trying to distract you from the emotion. And so hopefully that might help you take a step back to calm down. There's also the idea that your emotion may reward a child, may be reinforcing to the situation. It's the idea that negative attention may be better than no attention at all. And if children are looking for your attention, you may see behaviors kind of escalate because of that dynamic. Caregivers who are upset also tend to overreact. This is a parent who comes into a discipline exchange and says something like, "If you don't get this cleaned up, I'm giving all your toys to Goodwill." And you probably don't mean it. You're saying a big thing just to get everybody's attention. If that's you as a parent, over time, they're actually learning to tune you out. They're learning you don't mean it. We're going to talk in week 4, if you can stick with me that long, about making your consequences match the level of their behavior. You want to mean what you say. And for sure, if you're saying big things just to get everybody's attention, that's working against yourself. It's also good to know that every time you're moving through a discipline exchange, every time there's these emotions happening and there's the conflicts happening, children are learning from you what it looks like when people are angry or frustrated, how people move through these conflicts, how people reconnect after. They're soaking it up like a sponge. So you really want to stop and think, what do I look like in these moments? What do I sound like? What lessons about emotions am I bringing to the child in this moment? It's at least good to stop, to pause, and think about, what is the impact of your emotion? What are the lessons there? Now, all that guilt-inducing lecture said, it is normal to be angry and frustrated in these parenting moments. This is the closest of human relationships. You've got a lot invested in these children. You've been over the discipline 100 times with some of these children. It is okay to be angry, frustrated, upset. There's an approach to parenting called emotion coaching. This is John Gottman. He says that children need to see a wide range of emotions from their parents for that very reason. They need to learn about emotions. They need to learn how people express, how people move through, how people reconnect. Gottman says that children learn best if parents' emotions are short-term, moderate levels, and show resolution. So short-term means if you're angry every day, if you're angry for long stretches, if you're a depressed parent, that's too heavy. Kids check out from learning about that. Moderate levels, big levels are you're screaming and throwing things. Kids get scared. They can't learn from that either. But moderate levels where you're just frustrated, where you're just angry. It is fine to be emotional with children around, but moderate levels means it's safe. Safe to watch, safe to still communicate through. Short term means they know you're going to come back to at least even. They know they can trust the situation. And then resolution means showing the calm after the storm. This is reconnecting with children after they've seen your anger or frustration. That's probably... There was a study done at George Mason. They had parents keep emotion journals. Write down what emotion you display, what happens after, what your children are seeing. Parents who come back and give resolution, the parents who came back and either apologized, I'm sorry I was so loud, I didn't mean to be that big, or just explained, I was really angry, but look, we're getting it cleaned up. When parents apologize or explain, those kids had higher rates of emotion knowledge. They were better able to identify emotions in pictures and stories, likely because someone was giving them that debrief. Someone was labeling the emotion. They were saying, this is angry. This is what angry sounds like. And you're pairing that label with the emotion in the moment. And so good to give that resolution. Kids can then also move on from, can move forward with you. We're going to talk a lot about ways to calm as we move through this whole class. Here's a few small ways. One is accepting a situation. When you come into the discipline exchange, as you're entering in, so many of us tend to fight the situation. We tend to say things like, who made this mess? Why weren't you listening? And all of that is just focused on the problem and getting yourself worked up. Accepting a situation means coming in and saying, wow, this is a mess. And then solution-focused language. We need to get this cleaned up. You blocks, you balls. As we go through the next few weeks, we're going to talk more and more about accepting situation, about using solution-focused language, telling kids what to do. We need to get this cleaned up. Another way to calm, and it's a big one, is your first foundation step. We're going to talk about I messages. You're also, in just a few minutes, going to do some parent practice items about I messages. So starting today, moving forward, you're going to avoid what are called you messages. You messages blame the child. They sound like this. You always interrupt. You never listen. Look at the mess you made. You are always spilling things. Why are you hurting your sister? When there's a lot of yous there, the child doesn't feel badly about the behavior. They feel badly about self. They get defensive. They argue. When you're giving that you message, why aren't you listening? What is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? You're always hurting people. When there's you in the language, the listener gets defensive. You don't want to start your discipline exchange with something that makes the listener defensive. You're closing down the communication in that moment. So starting today, you're going to give something called I messages. I messages label your emotion and then blame the situation or the behavior. I'll give you some examples of the difference between a you message and an I message. Let's say the child runs through the living room, knocks over your lamp, breaks your lamp. You'd ask them to stop running. A you message, what we're going to avoid, you are always running in the house. I am so frustrated with you. Look, you broke my lamp. A lot of yous there. Child gets defensive, has to argue. An I message in that same moment, I'm angry, my lamp is broken. I'm upset, people are running in the house. I'm frustrated, no one is listening. The first part of the sentence, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm upset, you're labeling your emotion. Even with a little 18-month-old, they know something's up. They hear your voice, they see your face, They take notice of, there's something happening here, it's a change of emotion. You are giving it a label. You're teaching them something in that moment. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm upset. That's supposed to be the easy part of the sentence. The harder part, second part, is either global blame, no one is listening, people are running, or passive blame, my lamp is broken. You're taking the blame off of you, and putting it on the thing that happened, or putting it on the people. I know this is awkward. We actually had a parent of a 9-year-old come back and say, okay, my child stopped and said, I am not people, I am person. And that's true. You're talking to one child likely in that moment. But in that moment, when you give the you messages, you close the communication down. I messages are meant to keep that communication open. The listener isn't feeling so defensive. It's not you. It's the lamp. It's the running. That they can fix. Well, at least that they can stick around and listen to. This may sound a little like we're letting him off the hook, and we're not. We're going to get to the hook, just not today. I messages, your emotion, and then passive blame or global blame. I'll give you another example. Let's say you're at a big play date, 10 kids running amok. Parent hands child cup of red juice with no lid, and within a couple seconds there's red juice everywhere. And parent says, look at the mess you made. You are always spilling things. I'm not going to give you a cup until you're 7. Okay, there's a lot of yous there. Child bursts into tears, runs to hide. In that moment, an I message, I'm frustrated, there's juice everywhere. I'm worried, this might stain. There's juice everywhere, this might stain. That child can run and get a towel and help clean because it's not you. It's the mess, it's the juice. You can then follow this up with some choices about where they can sit with their cup, or about consequence language of having to stay in the kitchen, or of using lids every time. This doesn't tend to stand alone. This is a foundation step. And if you'll stick with me for the next few segments of this, we're going to get to those more active steps. Sometimes you're giving this language between children. Child A has a toy, child B keeps grabbing toys. Instead of, she's so angry with you, you keep taking things, you messages, you want to be giving I messages. You're giving it for that child. She's upset, she wasn't finished with that. She's angry, she wants her turn. That's delivering the I message between children. If you're a preschool teacher listening to that, far more often how you use this language. She's upset, she wasn't finished. She's angry, she wants that back. You're avoiding the you message in that language, which keeps the communication open, and you can move into those more active steps of discipline. Sometimes something happens and there's no emotion in the moment. Let's say a child runs through the living room, knocks over your lamp, and you hated that lamp, so you're like, yes, new lamp. It's not, I'm angry, my lamp is broken. You're not angry, but it's, wow, my lamp is broken. You don't have to use the emotion part if it's not there, but if you're laying blame, you want to lay blame on the situation, on the thing that happened. Passive blame or global blame. I messages are for if you're frustrated, if you're angry on your way into a discipline exchange. They're for sharing your emotions, but in a more productive way, in a way that keeps the child listening. On your outline, there's now some parent practice. If you're working along with me, what I'd like you to do is actually turn off the video for a few minutes and jot down for those parent practice items just the I messages. Not how you would have fixed it, what you would have said yesterday, but just that I message language. Then turn the video back on. I'm going to review the items and go over some answers. So, while playing with a friend, 4-year-old runs through the living room, knocks over the toddler, you'd repeatedly ask them to stop running in the house. An I message would either be your emotion and then blame behavior, or knocked over toddler's emotion. So an I message might sound like, I'm frustrated, that hurt her. I'm upset, people are still running in the house. She's crying, she didn't like that. She's upset, getting pushed over hurts. This is I message. It's on your way in. It's a foundation step. The next, Your older child is pinching to have the younger let go of a block. I'm upset, people are pinching. She's crying, pinching hurts. You're sharing the emotion without blaming the child. The next example, your 5-year-old sneaks out of the house to a neighbor's yard, takes you several panic minutes to find him. So you as the object, okay, just not the subject. I was scared, I couldn't find you. You're blaming self. I was worried, running out of the house is dangerous. This is I message language. This is the first thing I want you to do in a discipline exchange for the next 4 weeks. As you're listening to this information, we're going to slowly add on some steps to this positive discipline exchange. The first step, I messages and empathy. Then we're going to add positive intent and choices and challenges and contribution. Then we're going to add consequence language. We're going to build this system. Now, in real life, you wouldn't use all of these steps at one time. I can't remember ever using all of the steps at one time, but I don't want you to pick and choose until you get comfortable with the flow of the language. So for right now, every discipline exchange, I want you to think of an I message. Thank you.